and very honored to welcome Joey Evans.
Thank you very much. It's fantastic to be here, and I've got to start off with this picture here. And this is me as a kid, which wasn't a long time ago. It was just the 80s. But that's me on my BMX, and I love that BMX. And I grew up in Kempton Park, not too far from here. I was one of 6 children, so quite a big family. But that BMX was just incredible. And I would ride that BMX, and I'd ride through the veldt, and I'd always imagine it was a motorbike, because that was my real passion, to race a motorbike one day. But being one of 6 kids, I never had a motorbike growing up. And it took me until I was in my 20s to actually get my first motorbike after I got my first job. And I heard about a race, and I saw some images like this. And this is a race called the Dakar Rally. The Dakar Rally is known as the toughest off-road race in the world, and it covers a distance of 9,000 kilometers. So to give you an idea how far that is, that's from Cape Town to Cairo plus 1,000 kilometers. And you cover that distance in 2 weeks, and you can race it on a motorbike, a quad bike, a car, a truck. But I saw images like that when I was growing up, and I just thought, I'm going to do that race. I'm going to do that race one day. It just kind of spoke to me, and I knew that was something I wanted to do. But, as life goes on, I got married fairly young. I was about 23 when I got married, and by the time I was 28, I had 4 daughters. So you want to talk on tough times. But no, but if you got a talent, you need to use it. But to do a race like that when I was in my 20s was simply impossible. It would have cost me more than 3 years of my income to do a race like that. So I put it to the back of my mind, but I was like, one day I'm going to race the Dakar Rally. And I started other races in the meantime and things, and I raced local and stuff. And I was doing pretty well, and I was lying second in the championship, and I lined up at the start of the second last race of that championship, and I needed to win that race. And I lined up at the start with about another 20 riders. And we stood there on the start line like I'd done many times before. And the flag dropped. And off we went. And coming into that first corner, the bikes all kind of came together. And there was a big high-speed crash. And I woke up after this crash, and there were just all these heads around me. And what I'd done is I'd had a big crash, and the other bikers had ridden over me as well. And I'd obviously been unconscious. And waking up and staring at these faces, I thought my mouth was full of dirt, but it wasn't dirt. It was my teeth. And I started spitting out what I thought was dirt, and I'd shattered 12 of my teeth. And that wasn't the worst injury. The worst injury was that I couldn't feel my legs. There was just no feeling from my chest down. I couldn't feel my legs. I couldn't move my legs. And because of where it crashed, it was pretty remote and things. It took 3 hours lying in the dirt there before I was evacuated out. And I went to several different hospitals, and I ended up at a hospital in Pretoria. And it was there that I learned the full extent of my injuries. And what I'd done is I'd broken my T8 and T9 vertebrae in my back, and I'd crushed my spinal cord. And so I was paralyzed from the chest down. The doctors that saw me said that I wouldn't walk again. The first 2 doctors, and the third doctor said that I had about a 10% chance I'd walk again. And you can imagine being a dad, being a husband, to hear that you're going to be in a wheelchair the rest of your life was incredibly difficult to accept. There's a picture of my 4 little girls that were signing my back brace. And this all happened in 2007. So 10 years ago. And so these are my little girls. And you can imagine when you're lying there in that bed and you think of these little girls, I want to teach those girls to ride BMXs. I want to play with them on the beach. I want to walk them down the aisle one day. And all those dreams are just gone. And along with those big dreams was also those other dreams. My dream to race the Dakar Rally one day. It was obviously not as important as all of that, but it was gone with everything else. And it was very difficult to accept this. And as the days and weeks passed, I just watched my legs just disappear. And as the muscles atrophied and my legs just got skinnier and skinnier, it was incredibly difficult to accept this new reality. But then something incredible happened. And I got a little flicker in my big toe. And so that's not my toe, by the way. But I got this little flicker. And so if I really focused hard, I could make my right big toe just flicker a little bit, like some kind of Jedi mind trick, you know. But I got this, and then I started to get a little bit in my left ankle and a little bit in my right leg. And slowly but surely, I started to get some recovery. And I thought about my Dakar goal lying in that hospital. And I thought, how awesome would it be to come back from this and race the Dakar Rally? That would be pretty damn cool. And that motivated me. And I kept thinking about that through all the physio and that kind of stuff to one day achieve that goal. And so we went on, and you can see my little skinny legs sticking out the bottom of my shorts on the left. I look like those guys in the gym, you know, that skip leg day. But slowly but surely, I did get a bit better, and I got better. And then I started to take some of those first steps. And this is some of the just a little bit of footage here of when I started to learn to walk again. And so it gave me this hope, and it gave me this dream to just keep pushing on. And although I'd been given a 10% chance to walk, I knew that if I just put everything into this and just seize this opportunity, I'd give myself this best possible chance. And so I went on from walking, as you can see there, with those first sort of basic steps, and you can see now, obviously, I can walk a lot better. And we got on, and we started walking again, and then in order to be chasing my goal, I needed to start riding again and start racing again. And that's what I did. And as the years ticked by, I learned to ride again, started to race again, and it was very different racing again, finishing stone last. No longer you challenging championships, you're finishing at the back. But I learned big lessons then. And one of the lessons that I learned was that I'm not racing the other guys anymore. I'm racing myself. And every meter that I finish in those races, I'm winning. Look, I'm at the back, but I'm winning. And I needed to put a CV together, because the way Dakar works is you can't just pitch there and race. You have to qualify. And so you have to send a CV in of all the racing that you've done, as well as an international rally. And so over the years, I started ticking away at the CV. And those pictures on the right there was in Morocco. And so just in 2016, I went over to Morocco. I bought a place on a French team, and I went and raced in Morocco. And over the 7 days of that race, I finished that race. And so then my CV was ready to be sent into Dakar. And so I sent the CV in, and I waited. And it took about 6 weeks. And after about 6 weeks, I got an email that said, "Dear Joey, congratulations, you've been accepted to race the Dakar Rally." So you can imagine getting that email and realizing how close you are to this dream. But what you guys don't know is that it costs 1.1 million rand to race the Dakar. Now, no one had told me about Nedbank yet, 10 years ago. So I do not have 1.1 million rand. And so I sat down with my wife and my daughters, and we'd come this whole journey to get this entry. And so we're not about to let a silly little thing like money stand in the way of us racing this race. And so what we decided was we're going to raise that money. And we had 6 months to the start of Dakar. And so we sold T-shirts, we sold hats, we did fundraisers, we did evenings where my daughters would go table to table. Would you like to buy a raffle ticket? We did some enduro bike races, we did some adventure bike rides, we sold some rhino horn. We did, no, we didn't do that. But we did almost anything we could to raise this money. And can I tell you something? In 6 months, we raised 1.1 million rand. And we said, anybody who donates will add your name on the bike. And when the time came, we had more than 320 names of people on that bike. And I stood on that start line just last year, on the 2nd of January, on the start line of the Dakar Rally. So if you guys focus here on this, in fact, I'm going to stand over here. If you could focus there, that'd be great. But so I stood on the start line of the Dakar Rally just on the 2nd of January last year. And that guy's Mark Coma, and he's won the race 5 times, and he's part of the organization now. And he shook my hand. You can see that look on his face. And he's like, "Joe, you better finish this." And I'm like, "I will." You know, I was just so pumped. Now, up until that point, only 9 South Africans have ever finished the Dakar Rally on a motorbike. your chances of finishing the Dakar Rally are about 50% when you stand on that start line. Now, as a rookie, a first-time rider, your chances are probably closer to 30%. Now, I've got some challenges still. And so my legs still don't work properly. I can't run. I can't jump. I can do a little bit of a funny jog. I can't feel hot or cold or pain sensation below my chest. My legs still spasm a lot when I get tired or my adrenaline goes. I still have to take medication daily to help me to digest food. And I still have to use catheters. And so I've still got a lot of challenges on top of that. So realistically, my chances on that start line, probably about 10%. But I'm pretty good with 10%. And so off we went. And there was 3 of us South Africans that stood on that start line. But by the end of day 5, I was the last South African left in the race. One of the other guys had burnt out his motor at high altitude in the dunes, and another guy had been in a high-speed crash and broken his leg in 9 places. And I'd had to put him on the helicopter with the medics and stuff. It was horrendous, but we'd got through these days, and I ticked away, and I got through all the days. It's a 13-day race to cover this distance. And when I got all the way to day 12, but on day 12, everything changed. And I'm not the fastest rider, and I had some challenges on the race, and so on day 12, I'm lying stone last in the bike category. But that's okay, because I'm still in. Now, what happens is at Dakar is they send off the bikers every morning at 4 o'clock. And after the last biker, they start sending the cars. And after the cars, they send the trucks. Now, the cars and trucks are faster than a lot of the riders. And so what happens is that every day the riders are passed by cars and trucks. Now, it's a very dangerous situation, but they've got a good system. So when the guys when they see a rider in the distance, they press a button and it sends off an alarm on your bike. And so this alarm goes off on your bike, you turn around and you know there's a truck or car behind you. So you pull out of the track and the car or truck goes past, just, as guys, we talk with noises. And you wait, you make sure the car or truck's gone, there's another one behind them, and then you get back on the track and off you go, and you're racing again. And this had happened to me 100 times over Dakar. But on day 12, I'm stuck in this deep rut, and I'm going along in this deep rut, and this car comes flying up behind me, and my alarm sounds, and I turn around expecting to see a vehicle 200 meters back, and he's like 30 meters behind me, and he's doing more than double my speed, and this guy's committed. Now, because I'm in this rut, I can't just turn out the way, and as he's right on me, I just dive off the bike, and he just went crunch, and this happened. I can't believe this, man. I just had a car go right over my bike. Just so insane. So you can see my bike was just completely destroyed. Now, you know what it took to get there. This is the second last day. On this day, I still have 660 kilometers to race. And this has happened. And I'm in the middle of this desert environment with my bike just destroyed. And it was almost just too much. And I carry a satellite phone. And I phoned my wife. And I told her what had happened. And you can see that whole exhaust is crushed into the back wheel. That whole navigation tower is all completely broken off and smashed. The whole frame of the bike is bent. The handlebars are bent. There's 3 petrol tanks on the bike, and 2 of them are completely destroyed. I've got 1 tank left with just a little bit of fuel left in it. And I'm just out of this race. And I phoned my wife on the satellite phone because I know she's going to be back here in South Africa following the race on the computer, watching me hit the waypoints, and she's going to see that I've stopped. And I just said to her, I said, hey, my girl, I'm out of this race. This is what's happened. And she just cried. And I stood there in the middle of South America, thousands of miles from my wife here in South Africa. And obviously it's very dusty there, and so my eyes were watering a bit. And we just stood there crying. And it was just, man, it was just so hard to accept the situation. And I hung up that phone, and I just decided, there's no ways it's ending here. That is just not right. And so I started to fix that bike. And what I did is I took the whole exhaust off the bike, and I disconnected the petrol tanks, and I got the wheels as straight as I could and the bars, And I disconnected all the electrics at the back of the bike that were all torn open because that bike was just obviously covered in petrol and I didn't want to have an impromptu braai there. And we just did whatever I could. And I got that bike working. And I knew I couldn't make it through that day. Even with the bike working, I had only a couple liters of petrol. The next place I might even possibly get petrol was more than 60 kilometers away. So there was no way I was out the race, even if I got this bike working. But I had to try. I had to just take that 10% chance or 1% chance and just try. I just had to do it. And that's what I did. And I rode that bike without a foot peg and with my feet on, with my knee on the seat and my foot on the foot peg, and I just went through the bush. I couldn't even stay in the main track anymore because of the cars and trucks behind me. And it was so difficult riding through that environment, knowing you're out of this race and you're just trying, but you're out. You're just like a dead man walking. And then the most incredible thing happened. Okay, I've just ridden a few kilometers without an exhaust through the bush, trying to stay out of the way. And I've just come across a bike right here where the rider's being evacuated. He's obviously injured. So I'm just going to take everything off his bike that I need, put it onto mine, and just continue. There's nothing else I can do. And then obviously tonight I'm going to explain to the guy and stuff, but he's been evacuated, so he's out the race. But we're just going to quickly cannibalize what we can. It's freaking insane, but it shows you don't quit, ever. How motivated am I? Now, I told you in the beginning I was from Kempton, you check. And so the rules are I can't ride that bike, but I'm allowed in the Dakar rules to use any spares off that bike because the guy had broken his arms, he'd been medevaced out, and his bike was just waiting for the sweeper truck. So I took that exhaust off the bike, I took the whole foot peg cradle, I siphoned all the petrol out of the bike with the help of these 3 Argentinian guys who were like spectators there, and I got my bike working. And then I rode that bike, and I rode that bike those next 600 and something kilometers, and I was more than 4 hours behind the guy who was second last in the race. And I rode that bike just through the night, and it came to midnight, and I was still riding. And 1 o'clock in the morning, I was still riding. 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm still riding, just alone in the middle of South America. And 11 minutes past 2, I rolled into that second last camp of the Dakar Rally. I had 1 hour sleep. 4 o'clock the next morning, I was on the start line, and I rode 700 kilometers on the last day to cross the finish line of the Dakar Rally. And so... But that wasn't the real finish. The real finish was coming home to my wife, to my 4 girls who are a lot bigger now. And so this is the clip from the airport when I got home. Got to tell you, that night when we got home, my youngest daughter was like, "Dad, wasn't it cool how you Lion King to the medal and everyone cheered?" And she was right. It was fantastic. And that's a day that I'll remember my whole life. But I want you to think about 3 things. The first one is, I'm just a regular guy. I'm not some pro racer. I finish races last. I have school fees to pay, I have bonds to pay, just the same kind of stuff. But I had a dream, and I took those opportunities. And the second thing is, there's going to be dark times. There's going to be some miserable times in your life where it's really down, it's tough, it's hard, whether it's work or home or whatever. And there's going to be those dark times. And there's really dark times when you ride through the desert in South America at night. And the last thing is, focus on that 10%. When those opportunities come, it's just a little thing, just a little chance. You freaking take it, man. You take that 10%. You forget about the negative 90. You focus on that 10, and you work on that. And when you do that, you have your airport days. Thank you very much.